Hello folks, my name is Mark, this is Why I Hate the World. How you guys doing? So, once in a while I like to engage with my audience that mostly hates me. And this month, the lucky winner was Ryuko E Lee, who seems to believe in a lot of myths and legends, you know, a lot of conservative things that, you know, legends that just don't have very much basis in reality. So his first response to me was about child trafficking, because this was on my video about Trump's frickin' kidnapping children policy for illegal immigrants. And here we go. Ryuko E Lee, why would someone smuggle someone else's kid? Try Googling child trafficking. The whole child trafficking thing is basically an excuse. It's you know, a BS excuse dreamed up by a conservative pundit on Fox News somewhere to justify taking these children away. Because the other thing is that there is no proof really that, you know, that a significant number of these children that are separated are the victims of child trafficking. See, child trafficking tends to be run by organized rings and gangs, right? It happens everywhere. You gotta remember that. It happens in every state, in every city, everywhere, right? But the main drive behind it is usually prostitution. You know, that is to say, like a kid gets kidnapped and they'll be exploited sexually someplace, you know, either that or forced labor. The forced labor stuff seems to happen mostly in other places in the world. And in the United States, it's mostly child prostitution, right? And I love how this conspiracy, this fits right in with their, like, Pizzagate conspiracy theories and shit. But anyway, that's subject for another video. But, you know, what's the evidence? What's the evidence that these 2,000 cases since April, right, where the children in these cases are the victims of a child trafficking ring? Do you have any evidence of that? Because the Department of Justice does not. Okay, there is no evidence of that. In fact, you know, because you know, here's what you're going to respond, right? This is what the people respond to this. They say, well, how do you know that they're a family? Well, because they have identification. You know, the countries south of the border here, they're not like jungle wastelands where fucking, you know, people run around in like grass skirts and hunt fucking wild boars and shit. You know, they're modern countries, right? They have governments as well that issue driver's licenses and paperwork and passports and shit like that. And, you know, a lot of the time the people that come here, they have identification. It shows that they're a family, right? They have, you know, things like fucking the equivalent of driver's licenses and social security cards and stuff like that, right? And it's really not that hard to look them up either. Once they're processed, you can connect, you know, it's all through computers and shit, and you can check and see who they are. So it's like, you know, there's not very many, you know, if any, instances of people pretending to be a family to sneak children into the country. It's like, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's the kind of shit you hear on Alex Jones. It has no basis in fucking reality. So, moving on, here's another comment. Glad you have a whole 4chan board laughing at you on a regular basis, and you have a wall of children's toys behind you. I can undercut anything you say immediately if you're going to attempt to do the same thing. You can't refute the claim of child trafficking occurring on the southern border, so you just call someone stupid. So it doesn't matter who I am or what people online say about me, right? It doesn't matter that I have an entire wall of toys behind me, because I do. I'm not going to try to dispute that shit. I mean, I display them proudly here, right? Because they're awesome. You know, some guys collect stamps, right? Some guys play a lot of video games. I collect action figures and toys and shit. I'm happy, you know, I'm proud of it. Everybody has their thing, right? But that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter who I am, doesn't matter what I look like, right? It doesn't matter what race I am. None of that has any impact on the actual truth of my claim. Is what I'm saying true or not, right? And the fact is it is, okay? The evidence says that these children that are being separated from their families, you know, are the actual children of those parents, right? And not some kind of elaborate conspiracy of a gigantic child trafficking ring that's been, you know, been trying to sneak 2,000 children into the country since April. You know, because you got to remember, that's when this policy started. This policy started in April. Before that, you know, children were not routinely separated from their families. It barely happened, if ever, under Obama, right? And it's just, that's the simple fucking truth. Those are the facts. Those are the verifiable facts. Doesn't matter what anybody else says, right, about anything. That's what all that really matters is what is, you know, what can you prove? What's actually fucking happening? That's what's actually happening. Now, I really like this part here where you can say, I can undercut anything you say immediately. That tells me you're not actually interested in the truth, right? You don't care what the actual truth is. You don't care if California's a cesspool. You don't care that illegal aliens don't vote and never have voted, don't take welfare, right? It's illegal for them to take welfare. You don't give a shit about any of that stuff, right? You care about undercutting my argument because, you know, you're a fucking hack, right? That's, but you know what that means? That means you're a fucking, you know, you're a ridiculous hack that doesn't give a shit about what the actual truth is, right? Well, I do care what the truth is. Okay, so let's move on here. Let's give some examples of that. Okay, Ryuko E Lee, the Secretary of Homeland Security, on 6/18 at a White House press briefing, said that there was a 314% increase in adults with children arriving at the border fraudulently claiming to be a family unit. Either way, Trump didn't start it, and the law has been that way since the 90s. The Dems didn't want to come to the table to change it, so did an executive order to change it. It was never a crisis until the media needed to find something else to attack him over. If he was really Hitler tier and just wanted brown people gone, I'm sure he could easily have had them lined up in front of a ditch and machine gunned down with no one in the press ever knowing. Most other countries would just immediately kick them out instead of putting up with this bullshit. I believe that the Secretary of Homeland Security on June 18th actually said that there was a 314% increase in adults with children arriving at the border. The fact of if they're fraudulently claiming to be a family unit or not, I think remains to be proven, right? Just because they say that doesn't mean it's true. You know, you got to remember, I mean, that's a White House talking point, and, you know, with all administrations, those are not necessarily to be trusted, especially with this one. You know, the Trump administration lies daily, every fucking day, okay? You really can't believe a goddamn word they said. You know, he just said yesterday on the news that that they want him to hire 5,000 new judges, right, to, you know, help with the immigration, like, deportation process. That's bullshit. He just made that up. Trump just pulled that out of his ass, 5,000 judges. There's something like less than 1,000 in the entire country, right? They don't want to, I mean, it's ridiculous. They just, this administration lies as a matter of course, and they don't even try to cover it up. You know, like back in the past with Bush and Obama and Clinton and Reagan, and, you know, they would at least get everybody on the same page, right? The president would get all of his advisors and they would craft a message, and that message might end up being bullshit, but at least they would all stick to the same thing, and it would be something that you could kind of interpret to be real. Not so much in the Trump administration. In the Trump administration, they just make up shit, you know, because they know nobody cares. They know especially that their, you know, conservative base, you know, does not give a shit, right? The people that are still rating Trump at like an 86% approval rating, they know that Trump, you know, could do anything. He could rape a baby on live TV and they wouldn't give a fuck, right? Because they wouldn't. So it's like, sorry, I don't believe that. I simply don't believe it. That, you know, all 2,000 cases of these children that have been separated from their parents since April have been the result of fake family units who are pretending to be families and who are really trying to sneak the children into the country to sell them into sex slavery. It's bullshit. It's like Alex Jones level bullshit. Secondly, the law has not been that way since the 1990s, right? That's absolutely not true at all, which I showed in my subsequent comment there. The law passed in 1996 has no provision for separating children from their parents. Okay? So, you know, you're mistaken, and I like how you just completely ignore that. You just, you know, let's just move on. You know, it's bullshit. You believe incorrect things. All right? And third, it wasn't a crisis because Trump made it a crisis. It wasn't a crisis before April because that policy was not enacted until April. All right. Before that, the Obama administration did not separate children from their parents. You know, rarely, if ever. Okay. And now you're going to hear, like I said in my last video, a talking point about how in, 2014, there were like 1,500 children that they lost and all that stuff. Those children were not separated from their parents. Those were unaccompanied children. Those were children, like mostly teenagers, who tried to enter the country illegally without a legal guardian. And when that happens, right, the child is taken and he's held for, it used to be during the Obama administration. I don't even know what the fuck's happening now. They would take that child who was unaccompanied by a guardian. They would put him in hold him for a maximum of 3 days. And then the child would be placed with a family someplace. And usually the host family would be part of his or her real family that were like relatives that lived in the country. But not all the time. Sometimes a kid wouldn't have relatives and they'd place him with a foster care, right? And those 15 out of 7,000 cases of unaccompanied minors that came into the country, 1,500 of them they lost track, which means that either those kids ran away, which is most likely because they were trying to enter the country by themselves to begin with, right? Or, they, the family, the host family didn't report them, right? And that kind of thing happens all the time, right? But that's not the same fucking thing, I mean, that's still bad. They shouldn't lose track of children, but that's not what Trump is doing. Right, that's not Jeff Sessions and Trump's policy. Their policy is to remove children from their fucking parents when they all come together. See, that was not happening during the Obama administration. You guys need to understand that. That's bullshit. Okay, that's a horseshit talking point to try to make. It's like a Me Tooism thing. See, they're just as bad. Like that makes it fucking okay. Even if it was true, that wouldn't make it okay. It's like, I don't understand you people. Ryuko E Lee, if you go rob a bank and are charged with a crime, should you get to take your kids to jail with you? They were rarely separated as much by Obama because didn't charge with a crime, he just let them go. They're free votes from Democrats, which is the grand scheme behind it all and why California is a third world country now. Yeah, that sounded disjointed because I read it the way he wrote it. Alright, but anyway. First off, illegally crossing the border is not the same thing as robbing a bank, right? An illegal border crossing is a misdemeanor, okay? Robbing the bank is a felony. A misdemeanor is like a crime where you don't put people in danger. Basically, those are the differences, right? You don't, and no one really comes to harm, right? It only becomes a felony on repeated illegal border crossings, right? So that comparison is bullshit. You're comparing someone who threatens to kill somebody and steals to someone who does something that is puts no one in danger. So it's a complete fucking, that's a false dichotomy right there, false comparison. Secondly, I like how you backtrack now on this comment. They were rarely separated by Obama. You just admit that, once again, when I contradict you, you just completely admit it. You don't defend your position because you're not actually trying to defend your position. Like you said before, you're just trying to undercut me. Say, you don't give a shit what the truth is. The more ridiculous horseshit you believe, the more ridiculous stuff you'll support, and you end up getting, radicalized, right? And one day I'm gonna see you probably watching, marching in a fucking rally with a tiki torch, and a fucking polo shirt on, right? And it's like, dude, read the fucking truth, please. Don't just believe this shit when you see it. You have to actually find out what's actually happening, because it doesn't matter, if it feels good and if it fits your worldview. If it's not true, then you're a fool, right? Stop being a fucking fool. Anyway, that's all I got, folks. Adios.